Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and the headlines say, China has begun military operations near Taiwan, missiles in the sky, warships moving, fighter jets scrambling, and somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, an aircraft carrier strike group is already on the move. The question is not if the United States would respond. The real question is how. Tonight we are going inside the real naval strategy of the United States Navy and what could actually happen if China makes a move on Taiwan. This is strategy, but by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how a modern naval war would unfold. Before we talk about ships and missiles, we need to understand something simple. Taiwan is not just an island. It sits at the center of the Western Pacific, right between Japan and the Philippines. It's part of what military planners call the first island chain. Control Taiwan and you unlock the Pacific. Lose Taiwan and the balance of naval power shifts dramatically. For China, it's about reunification and regional dominance. For the United States, it's about maintaining stability and protecting allies. And for the world, it's about trade routes, technology supply chains, and global security. That's why the Taiwan Strait is one of the most heavily watched pieces of water on Earth. And emotionally, if China were to act, military experts believe the first strike wouldn't start with ships. It would start with missiles. China would likely attempt massive missile strikes on Taiwanese air bases, cyber attacks on communications, naval blockades, air superiority operations. The goal: overwhelm Taiwan quickly before outside help arrives, and that's where the clock starts ticking. Because the United States doesn't wait for a formal announcement, the US Navy operates on forward deployment. That means American ships are already in the region. That always. At any given moment, the United States Navy maintains time aircraft carriers in the Pacific, submarines operating silently, destroyers on patrol, amphibious assault ships nearby. The closest major base, Japan. From there, response time could be measured in hours, not weeks. But here's the key point. The US Navy would not rush blindly into the Taiwan Strait. That would be suicide. Instead, strategy matters. Carrier Strike Group is not just one ship. It's a floating military city. It includes training pushes, a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, guided missile cruisers, destroyers, submarines, supply ships. The aircraft carrier itself can launch F-35 stealth fighters, electronic warfare aircraft, surveillance planes, but here's the twist. Carriers are powerful, but they are also high-value targets. China has developed long-range anti-ship ballistic missiles. These are sometimes called carrier killers. So the US Navy strategy is not about charging forward. It's about layered defense and distance warfare. If there is one weapon China truly fears, it's submarines. US nuclear-powered attack submarines operate quietly beneath the surface. Invisible, they can track enemy ships, launch cruise missiles, sink surface fleets, but China would never know exactly where they are. This silent force could disrupt invasion fleets, destroy supply ships, threaten Chinese naval formations, before the first American jet even takes off, and more dangerous than what you can. Many people imagine naval war as ship versus ship. But modern war is air versus air. Control the skies and you control the sea. Carrier-based F-35 fighters would operate alongside US Air Force aircraft from nearby bases. Their mission would be simple: protect Taiwan's airspace, destroy enemy radar systems, intercept incoming threats. The first 72 hours would decide everything, because if China establishes air dominance early, it becomes far harder to reverse. Now here's something most people overlook. The conflict wouldn't just stay in the Taiwan Strait. It would likely expand into the South China Sea. Why? Because supply routes matter. Both sides would attempt to protect logistics lines, disrupt reinforcements, control maritime choke points. This becomes a chess match across thousands of miles of ocean, not just one battlefield. Simultaneously, one of the most realistic possibilities is not invasion, But blockade bait China could attempt to surround Taiwan and choke off trade. No full invasion. No immediate beach landings. Just slow economic pressure. Maybe respond unveiled by escorting merchant ships. That's risky because one missile hitting a civilian vessel could escalate everything, and escalation is what both sides would try to avoid, at least initially. This becomes one of the most complex military operations in history. Amphibious assaults require Reich, transport ships, landing craft air cover, logistics coordination, and during that crossing, invasion forces are extremely vulnerable. Submarines, mines, airstrikes, missiles. This is where naval power becomes decisive. Stopping an invasion fleet before it reaches shore is far easier than removing it afterward. That's why US naval doctrine emphasized sea denial, not just sea control. Modern war isn't just missiles, it's signals, satellites, radar, GPS. The United States Navy invests heavily in electronic warfare. Disrupting enemy communications could targeting protect fleet positions. In a Taiwan scenario, cyber operations could start before the first shot is fired. The battlefield may begin in data centers, not oceans. This is not a two-player game. Japan could become involved. Australia could provide support. Regional alliances matter. If allied forces join, naval presence multiplies, and that changes calculations dramatically because the goal for the United States is not conquest, it's deterrence, showing enough force to prevent escalation. Thus address the uncomfortable reality. Both the United States and China are nuclear powers. That alone forces caution. Any conflict would likely remain conventional, at least at the start. Naval war allows distance. Missiles can strike without crossing borders. Submarines can operate without public escalation. This creates a dangerous but controlled environment, at least in theory. If we boil this down to its simplest form, the US Navy strategy around Taiwan is not about invasion, it's about denial. Deny sea control, deny air superiority, deny supply routes, deny quick victory, because the longer a conflict drags on, the higher the economic and political cost becomes, and that pressure can change outcomes. Time is a weapon, and navies understand time better than anyone. Tensions rise, military drills increase, ships patrol closer. But war is not inevitable. In fact, visible naval presence often prevents war. When aircraft carriers sail through contested waters, it sends a message: prepared, watching, ready. Deterrence is silent power. Watching, ready. Deterrence is silent power. Disha. If China were to move on Taiwan, the response would not be chaotic. It would be calculated, strategic. Submarines beneath the surface, carriers beyond missile range, destroyers forming defensive shields, aircraft controlling the skies, cyber units disrupting networks. This is not World War II. This is 21st century naval chess. And the United States Navy has spent decades preparing for exactly this kind of scenario. Whether it ever happens, no one knows. But one thing is certain. In the vast waters of the Pacific, strategy decides survival. If you enjoyed this deep dive into modern naval strategy, subscribe to Astroc's Sea Warfare Explained for more detailed military breakdowns. Because the ocean may look calm, but beneath the surface, the real battle plans are already written.